All righty. Oops, I forgot to change the screen. I knew I'd forget something. There we go. Welcome to the CNC with Dave Gatton show. I am super excited tonight to have my uh, good friend and one of my favorite Gattoneers, Becca Miller, on the show tonight.
Howdy.
Um, Becca has, I guess, fairly recently completed the Gatton CNC build. However, that's not really your first build, and some people may be surprised to know that you've built the old shoestring budget one before. So,
Right.
uh, technically, you're an old veteran then.
I'm old. I don't know about
when it comes to building these things. So let me check over here and see who we've got. We got lots of folks out there. We'll just kind of run down some of them there. We got Bart Bixel in the house, Clyde Labonte CNC, Harry Ragland, Stephen Toronto, Dan Lovegren, Wayne Hurl, JJ's Woodshop, Philip Carter, Ed Newman, Wood If I Could, Dave Krause, Barry Curtis, Dwight Bennett, Steve Misher, Landis Stutes, Harnell Media, Rob Hampton, Javi Ensueta, Kevin Harder, Paul Stewart, and the list goes on and on. Kevin Els, Jim Sinicola, Tim DeLine, Troy Pritchard, Gary Davis. Wow. I'm going to end up taking up half the show just giving everybody a shout out here. So, welcome, everybody. I'm glad you're here. We're going to talk with Becca about her CNC experience, building and running and whatever else she wants to talk about. So if you have any questions for Becca, feel free to put them in the chat, and I will pull them up as I see them. But anyway, Becca, just tell the folks out there what you think. What's on your mind?
what's on my mind. Well, I brought some pictures that I wanted to share, and they kind of start from how I started and kind of tell everybody where I came from, and we'll end up with talking about my build and my computer stand and all that good stuff. So,
okay. So did you want to start with the screen share then?
Yeah, we'll just start with the screen share, and I'll tell you what my.
Okay, you're ready, right?
I'm ready.
All righty.
This is my first little CNC that I bought. It was a CNC Piranha. That was before I knew anything about Dave Gatton. And it was sort of a joke. I'm sorry, guys, if the Piranha people are listening. But it taught me that I really wanted a CNC. It made a little piece that was about that big, and that was about all that you could do on it. So I quickly started trying to find something else to do, and that's when I started building this little beauty. And this was my shoestring, and I made so many mistakes making this because I didn't really know what I was doing. Number one, I didn't use plywood like Dave said. I used MDF, and of course it started rattling pretty quickly, and I had to replace these parts one at a time as time went on because it was just a piece of junk the way I built it. But I built it, and I learned a heck of a lot, just how CNCs work. And I think that's the best way to learn about CNCs is to build one, because once you build it, you know all its secrets. There's nothing out there you don't understand.
It's not as mysterious as a lot of manufacturers try to make it seem.
Right. Oh, and that little CNC, that first one, cost me $1,200. Guess what? I could have built a Gatton for a lot less than that at that time. That was about, 5 years ago? 6 years, 6 years ago. Yeah. This is another picture from that. This is after I got my tracks in, and I had it up and running. And it did me a lot of good. Here's my whole setup where I have my tracks in, my, what do you call those things? I'm amazed with that. The wires, where the wires are running. I can't remember the name. My brain doesn't work very well. And my
Oh,
vacuum
you talking about the drag chain?
drag chain. That's the what I was trying to think.
Okay.
Got the drag chain here and here, and on this, on the y-axis, and that cleaned it up so much, and was able to. And I had the remote control for the vacuum, so it was a nice little toy for a long time. This is one of the things I made with the CNC, with my first one. I made all of the curved pieces and everything. And this was a gift for a friend of mine, and she put it out by her pool. And I submitted this picture to Woodworkers Journal because I used their plan, and they put it in their magazine. I was
Awesome.
for a whole 5 minutes.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So that was kind of exciting, but I did that. Then I got into the business, not business, but I started making boxes for teachers. I made, I don't know, 10 boxes for teachers. This one was for a math teacher that the kids put their calculators in. And I did all of the cuts on the CNC, and it made it so easy. It just slipped together. And then I would do a logo on the top of the box, like this one. They were the zebras.
Okay.
And then this was another thing I got pretty involved with, was making Christmas trees. And I made a whole slew of those. I probably made 10 or 12 of them for folks. But all I did is set the old boards up there on the CNC and cut them out and screwed them together.
What are those made out of? Is that like 1/2-inch plywood?
1/2-inch plywood, right? Right. Now, some of them were painted, some of them were stained, some of them were just natural. So depending on what everybody wanted. And this was my little grumpy I made. I kind of messed up the eyes on it, but anyway. Now this one, those little pieces were a pain in the butt, but on the CNC, it just cut them right out. What it was a marching machine for my band that I'm in. I played bass clarinet on band. And it was a percussion instrument, the Greater Fort Worth Community Band. And they thought I was a genius because I put that together. And my chorus that I'm in, I made this. It's a slapstick, and it makes the slap sound on the Snow Ride song that you sing at Christmas time. It makes it sound like a whip.
Oh, okay.
That was fun. And this one is, I'm cutting out a marble game. And this was the marble game that I cut out with a pug in the middle. Anyway, so those are all of my, I think that's all of them. Yeah, that's all of my shoestring ones. And then after I got through with that, let me see. Let me back up a little bit here. Back up. I decided to get the new one. And this is, well, that's not, those are my projects. Wait a minute. I'm not very well organized. Here we go. This is the new one that I just built. This was starting the base and putting it together. And I kind of used Mark's plans, but then I decided not to. And this was the first go at it. And then I cut all of those high things off. And I didn't put the next layer up like most of the plans have, because I just didn't want to buy any more wood. And it was so solid. And so I don't have that where you have the little legs and have the base of the CNC sitting on top of your table. Mm-hmm. I made the table the base of the CNC. And it's got lots of bracing here. It's got bracing under here. And it's really solid. And then I put, these were the floor, and then I put some upright panels in there too, so you can see those there. And pardon me for looking over the side, but I'm looking at my picture over here.
Oh, okay.
So this is just about ready. I've got my 2-inch hang on each side for my y-axis, etc. And then I got my kit. I was so excited. And this is where I primed it. Just laid everything out and primed it at once. And we spray painted it. I say we. I have a guy that lives a couple of blocks away that comes and helps me with all the heavy stuff. And he's a jewel to have around, I tell you. And this is a mess. And
that's how a lot of Gatton CNC tables start out looking until they're ready to run.
it was such a mess. And every time I wanted anything that was on the table, I couldn't find it. So I would get it all organized. I said, okay, I'm going to get it organized. And then, yeah, it was like this again. But here you see I've already got the y-axis on there and the x-axis, and just about finished at this point. I have the z-axis here I'm working on. So, and then I got the spoil. When it's finished, I got the spoil board on there and got it all leveled. And so there it is, all finished. Now I've got some T-tracks. I bought some T-tracks that I'm going to put in here, but I haven't done that yet. And but it really didn't take that long to put it all together. Once you get the kit, it's all put together. The hard part is getting all the wiring in the right place. This is the Z-axis. And again,
what is that router? Is that an 892?
890, I think.
890. Okay. The quarter cable, I guess, with a variable speed.
Right.
Okay.
This is the kit shoe. It's really nice. I've got the drag chain up here. I just set it up just like I had my other one, really. And then here's my drag chain on this. Now, I made my table big enough to take a 48 by 48 piece of plywood. And so this piece of aluminum that I put on here was kind of wobbly. So I didn't take a picture of it, but about halfway down, I put a little piece of the T-track from my old machine. Here's my old machine table back here.
Mm-hmm.
And I took some of the T-track and just screwed it on to make a little trench for this to sit in, and it didn't wobble anymore, so that worked well. And see, and this is the x-axis, and I did the same thing on it, but I just used a piece of, aluminum angle, and that held it it holds it real steady.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the drag chain for the z-axis. It's, sitting on the x-axis. And that's the back of it. You can see it a little better.
Mm-hmm.
And got the vacuum all set up, but this isn't where I was leaving it. This is right now it's sitting in the middle of my garage. And but my garage is very long, so I moved it back here sideways. So I don't even know if I have a picture of that. I think I do. Here in a minute. Let me see. Projects here. This is starting cutting out. This is my first project on my new CNC. I'm cutting out that computer stand that I built.
Mm-hmm. I saw that. I like that.
Yeah, and it's all just snapped together pretty much, and it really I goofed up on it a little bit, but it looks nice. I mean, it's very functional. I like it a lot. Here it is. Before I painted, I didn't really paint anything except this, but I've got the monitor up here on this power thing, and then it's got 5 drawers, three little ones and 2 big ones, and then around the back. Oh, this is my little cubby hole here, because this is after I've moved it to the back of the room. It's got its own space right here, and then I've got my power here, and then here's the computer sits down here. Actually, my computer, I had to lay down on its side because it wasn't tall enough. This wasn't tall enough for it. But the whole thing, once I cut it out, it took 3 sheets of 1/2 inch plywood, and actually it only took 2.5 sheets. I had a half sheet left over, and I just, plop one up there, cut it out, plop one up there, and cut them all out, and then they just pop together, and then you put some screws in it, and it didn't take anything to put it together. It was really cool. Put some rollers on it so I could roll it around.
Now, do you remember the place where you got those plans in case anybody else is looking at that and wants to go check it out?
Yeah.
Place-
I put it on our Facebook page. I posted the links there, but I didn't write it down before.
Okay. Well, you keep talking, and while you're doing that, I'll see if I can find it here.
Okay.
And I'll put it in the.
Okay. And I did want to do a shout out to Don Puckett, because he sent me some spare parts after he took his CNC apart, and it kept it where I didn't have to buy any new parts for this one, except for one of my motors died, and I ended up having to buy a new motor. But everything else I pretty well had in stock right from my old machine of things Don supplied me, and I really appreciate that. And another shout out to Dave Krause and Andrew Haig for the jigs. Andrew Haig designed them, and Dave Krause sent me a set of them, and I have sent them on to Michael Packer. So we're sharing the world through Gatton CNC. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I wanted to say is on this motor, it was the new one that I bought. Be careful, because I didn't notice this when I bought it. It doesn't have the dual shaft. It doesn't have the shaft on top. And so you really don't have much of a way to manually move that, since the shaft is inside the box. So I had already put all the other motors on before I realized that, and I didn't want to take them off. It would have been better if I'd have put that one with no shaft, maybe on one of the Y-axis.
Yeah.
But when you buy your motors, make sure you get the dual shaft ones, because that makes life a lot easier.
Yeah. I have, of course, I had the old Xylotex 425 ounce on mine, and they're all dual shaft, but I only have that phenolic knob on the Z axis.
Right.
But I found that once you get homing switches and all that put on there, and especially if you use some kind of a pendant, I never touch that knob. So to me now, I guess it depends on the setup, but to me that dual shaft thing isn't that big a deal as what it used to be.
Yeah, that's probably true. And it really hasn't bothered me much. But a couple of times I've wanted to manually move it, and I'm like, can't do it. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Some other pictures I thought I would share with you. This is my other shop. My CNC's in the garage, but I have a shop set up out behind the garage, and these are some pictures from my shop. And that's me, silly me. But I've got the miter saw and the sander and the router table, and this is the table saw, planer. There's a bandsaw back there somewhere. I don't know where it disappeared to. That's my table saw looking back that way. My drill press, joiner. There's my bandsaw. It's an old bandsaw my dad had, and it's still working fine. I have some sanders back there, orbital sander and belt sander. Anyway, just in case anybody wanted to see my other shop. And let's see. I wanted to show you, this is the best project I ever did. And I did it right after I retired, before I made my CNC. And that's my fireplace surround I built.
Mm-hmm.
Just using my table saw. And it wasn't even that big table saw. I had a smaller table saw when I built that. And this is me and my sister when we did the Extreme Makeover Home Edition together.
Oh, cool.
it was a fun experience. I tell you, they really built that house, a 2-story house, in 4 days. It was amazing. But yeah, what's the other picture? Oh, and that's me on my bass clarinet. There you go. I think that's all my pictures, Dave.
Okay, it took me forever to find it, but I finally did find that link. It's evilmadscientist.com.
That's it. That's it.
And I put the link here in the chat on YouTube. So if anybody wants to
now, if you make it, don't mess up like I did, because the tabs on them are different links. There's some that are short and some that are long, and I didn't realize that. And I tried to put the long tab into the short slot, and it didn't work. And I thought I'd screwed up, and I cut them out. And then I realized the other side was too short now. And anyway, just realized that some of those are different sizes. And that was the only real mistake I made on that. So, but it was fun to make. Any questions?
Okay, we did have a question. Of course, let me scroll back up and find it now. Well, it's going to be up there a ways now because the chat has just been scrolling by as I. Here we go. Javi says, "What was the most difficult part of your first build? Any stumbling blocks?"
Wow. I guess the electronics. The electronics was the hardest. Putting the wood together wasn't that hard, and cutting it out by the plans. I didn't have a CNC to cut the parts out, of course, so a lot of them I had to cut with a jigsaw and sand them down and stuff. But
yeah, just so people know, excuse me, Becca, but just so people know, when the one she's talking about is the shoestring budget build, and I didn't cut parts for people. Mm-hmm. I sent flat patterns, where they could print them out on paper and take pieces of tape and tape the bigger, and you would lay them out at a paper template and then cut them out with a bandsaw and drill them with a drill press or whatever you had. And so that's how the shoestring budget was with everybody. Now, if somebody knew somebody that had a CNC, they could take those DXF files and get them cut. But at the time, I was still working, working for the man back then. So I didn't have time I had got a lot of requests to cut parts for people, but I thought, no, I can't do it. I don't have time. So that's what Becca's talking about when she says the woodworking. She actually did cut those parts out herself.
Yes. But then, and I got the Xylotex box. But even with the Xylotex box, again, I didn't know anything. I was, the plug. Where does this plug? What's a bop? I didn't know any of that stuff. So getting all the put everything in the right places and get them all lined up, and that was the hard part for me. Mechanically, just putting them together, that wasn't a big deal for me. But getting the thing to run. Oh, and I guess the hardest thing really was learning VCarve Pro. Or actually, it was, I had VCarve Desktop, but I upgraded to VCarve Pro. And just learning how to design and learning how to create the G code, to run the machine, and then learning how to get the Mach 3 to work, and getting that all, that to me was the hardest part. So.
Mm-hmm. I'm scrolling through here looking for some more questions. I see we've got this guy here in the house tonight. Hey, Peter, how you doing? Haven't seen you in a while. I did check out your video about the vacuum table the other day, so I'm following that pretty close because I'm going to try to build I'm going to call it a special purpose vacuum table. It's not really a table. It's just going to be a small piece for a certain job that I run all the time. So I'm kind of following what you're doing there to see what works and what doesn't. So always enjoy Peter's videos. If anybody out there has been in a cave or something for the last 10 years and hasn't subscribed to Peter, you need to go
do that.
check out his YouTube channel. He's got a ton of CNC knowledge over there on his channel. Oh, let's see. I don't see any.
I have a question for you, Dave.
Okay, make it easy now, because it's supposed to be all about you. I haven't studied anything.
Okay, well, I did my first CNC project on my new big machine, which I love. But I did it with a 48 by 48 piece of plywood. And I know that you cut your kits on one big long, it's not 48 by 48, but it's long and big. Do you use tabs? You can't clamp down every little piece that you're cutting out all at once. Do you use tabs to keep all your pieces?
Yeah, when I'm cutting you're talking about when I'm cutting a Gatton CNC kit. Yeah, in fact I use pretty healthy tabs.
Okay. And
there's a couple of reasons for that. One, or probably the most important reason, is because a lot of times, almost 99% of the time, when I'm running that machine and cutting Gatton CNC kits, I'm not even out there. It's on autopilot. And so I put fairly healthy tabs so that I don't have to worry about anything busting loose and popping up and, causing a real problem. And then the other thing is too, it makes it easier for me to, when that one's done, I can swap out a blank in about probably 60 seconds because I put clamps. I've got 4 clamps on the front, 4 clamps in the back. And so I just undo those, and that way I can pick the whole blank up without worrying about any of the parts falling out and stand it up. And then what I do is, once I get another one going, while that one's running, I take one of those little oscillating tools with a little blade.
Oh.
And I just prop it up again. And that's how I cut the parts off. And I don't even worry about trying to get it flush or anything, because I have a little small router table set up out there with a flush trim router bit. So I just stack all the parts up and then set the skeleton aside and then take them and real quick knock all the tabs off. So that's how I do it. But yeah, I use probably healthier tabs than most people, just because I run it unattended all the time.
Yeah. Good to know. That's what I did with those parts that I did on that table. In fact, I did healthy tabs too, because one popped up on me the first cut I did. And I saw it break. I went, uh-oh. So yeah. I changed my program and put,
Another thing that I do that probably a lot of people wouldn't have to worry about is, most of the time, the plywood I buy is pretty consistent as far as thickness. They call it 3/4 plywood, but it's never really 3/4. It's usually Mike's about 0.72, could be 0.705, or, it varies. So what I do is I have my program set to go well past 3/4. And when I say well past, like 30 thousandths, I think that final cut, I have it cut in 0.78. So that's another reason I run healthy tabs, because it's really going to cut off part of the tab because of that. And I don't want to have to clean up any little onion skin that might be there. I just want to cut the tabs, hit them with the flush trim bit, and be done with it. So again, that's why I have healthy tabs, because I run extra deep in case there's any variance in the plywood. Sometimes you get a piece of plywood, because I'm using a 48 by 32 blank. And whenever I pull one out of my shelf and I always stand it up and look down it to try to see which way it's bowed, because it's almost always got at least a little bit of bow. So I try to make it so that when I set it on the table, it's bowing up at the corners, because I can clamp it and pull it down flat. But sometimes even then, when you do that, it may hump up somewhere else. So again, that's why I do the healthy tabs, because I'm not out there watching it. I'm usually watching it from a camera. A lot of times I'm sitting right here where I am now, looking over here at my security camera, because I have one pointed right to my Gatton CNC. So that's how I watch it run.
Cool.
So, all right, let's see. JJ Woodshop says, how thick are your tabs? I usually run them. I usually run them 3/8 by 3/8. And if I'm using 3D tabs, I'll run them 1/2 by 3/8, just because when you're running the 3D, you're really getting that little triangle instead of, the square.
Do you like the 3D better than the square?
Well, the 3D is faster.
Okay.
But sometimes, like I said, sometimes you got to have them pretty healthy if you're running 3D, or when you go to pick it up, they'll fall out. Yeah. So, let's see. Javi has posted the link to Peter Pasuelo's channel. Thank you, Javi. He's playing moderator, even though he's probably sitting there with his soldering gun, I would imagine, at this point.
I've learned so much from Peter's videos. You really should check them out if you haven't.
Yeah. Let's see here. Let me scroll back up. Oh, come on. I get this all the time. How many Gatton kits do you have out there, Dave? Answer with me. All of them. That was my standard answer. All of them. Yeah. I thought people were done asking me that, but yeah, that's my standard answer.
He doesn't know.
Well, I could find out, but
you don't care.
Of course, there's a lot of them too that I've done giveaways on, stuff like that. But yeah, I never know from 1 minute an exact number. I mean, I could probably get pretty close.
But the real question is, how many of them have been put together? How many of them are running?
Yeah, that's the important question.
And how many are sitting in the garage somewhere?
Yeah. And I try to tell people, and I need to remind them, because I've had a few folks, I've been doing or trying to do that map thing on the website. We call it the Gattoneers Club. And I always tell folks, when you fill out that form, it will say photo required. Well, the reason I do that is because just because you buy a Gatton CNC kit, that does not make you a Gattoneer.
That's right.
You're not an official Gattoneer until you've got it built and it's running. So don't send me an email saying you want to be added to the map, and yeah, it's okay for people to come to your shop and take a look at your, because if it's still in the box or you got it half built and it's not running, that's not any good. You're not an official Gattoneer until it's running. So you should, when you send that request, you should always send a picture, and even better yet, a video of it running. So, okay, I think we might have answered this. He says, do you use 3D tabs? Yeah, I do sometimes. It just depends on what. Sometimes, I do it all. Sometimes I run the regular tabs. Sometimes I use the 3D tabs. Sometimes I don't use tabs at all. Just depends on what I'm running. If I'm running something where I'm using a downcut bit, or downcut spiral to part it out, those things just pack the dust in there, so you can almost always get by without even putting tabs. Poppy's, you guys are asking me all the questions. Becca's supposed to be getting the questions. Poppy says, what plywood do you use? I use Pure Bond plywood, 3/4 inch, birch, and maple. Pure Bond plywood is made by Carolina Forest Products out of South Carolina, I believe is where they're from. And it's carried by Home Depot. It's, I tried a few different plywoods when I first started, and found that it's probably the best that I can get locally at a reasonable price. And even that's starting to get questionable because their price keeps going up too. So occasionally you'll find a void in them. If I'm cutting a kit and I'm getting ready to pack one up and I see a void, if it's a good size void, I'll just replace the part. I've always got extra parts that for one reason or another, I've got them sitting around, I save them. So I'll replace the part. If it's a little void and I know it's not going to affect the structural integrity of the part, and it's someplace that once you put it together, it's not going to be seen, that will go ahead and ship. But for the most part, I try to make sure there's no big voids. Like if there's a big void and it's right on the little bracket where your router mounts or something, that's got to be replaced. But other places, it's not going to affect anything. So, all right. Man, you guys are asking me all the questions here.
That's okay.
This is, let's see. 11 Atlantica says, Dave, when you built your 4th axis lathe, how was that connected to your controller Mach 3? Are you unplugging the existing axis and reconnecting the 4th? Yeah, I've done 2 different videos, one a really long time ago, and then another one a pretty long time ago. And that's how I do it, because basically the Xylotex or whatever, basically it's a 4-axis kit. In other words, it's 4 stepper motors. Now, with Gattons and Garage Works and many other CNCs, you use 2 for the Y-axis, so you're slaving those. But if you set the rotary axis parallel to the X-axis, then you move the Y-axis forward or the gantry forward, get it centered over that lathe or rotary axis, whatever you want to call it. Once you get that centered over there, you're not moving that axis anymore. So you got 2 motors back there that you're not going to use. So you can unplug from one. I usually would unplug the blue one, which would be the A axis or the second Y, the one that's slaved to the Y, and plug it up. And then I would load another machine profile in Mach 3 that I have called rotary axis. And then it has an X, a Z, and an A, which is angular now instead of linear. So there you go.
I'm thinking
there was more to that question, or did you connect it? You could probably do it that way, but yeah, I did it the way you're talking about in that part. I didn't even see
I've done that too, but I think I want to go the other way because the limitation of the size. In that case, I would disconnect the X-axis motor, right?
You could do it that way. You could turn it where it's perpendicular to the X-axis, and then move the X-axis until you get it centered, and then disconnect that one. You could do it either way.
Right.
Let's see here. So let's see here. Lazy O Woodwork says, somebody asked earlier, how did Becca get started into woodworking?
Well, my dad was a woodworker, but I never did do any woodworking with him. That was just his escape. He would go out in his shop and build things, especially after he was retired. And after he died, we a couple of the kids, not all of us, split up his woodworking tools. So I had his bandsaw, and I had his not his planer, but his joiner, and an old table saw, I think. And I said, I'm going to do something with it. So I started trying to learn some woodworking, and But like I said, that fireplace surround was the first thing I built. So it was an experience, and I figured out wood's fun, and it's very forgiving. And you make a mistake, you can fix it or do it over, and it's all okay. And I pretty much fell in love with it then. So,
All righty. Paul Stewart says, have you ever caught fire? I've had two on my old machines because I wasn't watching, and a nice hot bit broke and fell into the sawdust. Not a huge fire, but a fire nonetheless. Here's the thing, and I don't want anybody to take what I said the wrong way when I said I run mine unattended. I kind of do, which means I'm not physically in the garage or in the shop when it's running. I've got a camera on it, but more importantly than the camera, because I can sit here and watch the camera and I still can't tell if it's cutting or if the bit's broke or whatever, unless I look really, really close. But what's more important than watching it with a camera is being able to hear it. So even when I'm all the way back, and my office here is at the far end of the house, the garage is that way on the other end. So even when I'm back here and watching it on the security camera, I make sure I have the sound on, the TV's not on, there's nothing, because when I'm all the way back here, I can't hear it as good as I want to. But most of the time, if I'm anywhere else in the house, I can hear it well. And a lot of times when I'm sitting in, like maybe I'm sitting there watching TV while it's running, I don't even have a camera on it, but I can hear it. And that's more important to me than having a camera on it, because you can tell, if you got experience, you can tell as soon as something's not quite right. That router, or in my case, spindle, will change pitch, or all of a sudden things get quiet and your bit has broke. So yeah, listening to it is more important than seeing it, probably.
I've had a couple of bits break, and I pretty much watch mine all the time. It kind of scares me to think about leaving it, but and sometimes it starts to burn the wood, and you try to get there and turn that thing off right then. But if you need to watch it one way or another.
Yeah, and another point I might make too, and I don't know if you have one of these or not, Becca, but you should just invest in a cheap fire extinguisher. You can get them off of Amazon Prime. I don't know what they are, 20, 30, $40, something like that. And have it handy. Mount it to the side of your machine, or someplace where don't put it someplace where you're gonna move a toolbox or something in front of it. Make it where it's right there where you can get to it, if need be. But yeah, that's important.
Definitely.
Okay, I think this is a question for you. It says, Philip Carter asked, what got you interested in doing CNCing? Sorry if you mentioned it already. Great shop setup, by the way. Yeah, that one's for you.
Okay. Well, like I said, I had gotten that first CNC just because I had heard about it, and just took the big leap and decided I was going to try it. But the Gatton CNC, I was at my brother's house and we were just watching woodworking videos. That's what we do when we're together. And he said, have you seen this guy, Dave Gatton? And I said, no. Well, I think it was Thanksgiving or something. And we sat there and watched the whole building a shoestring. I think there were 13 hours.
Well, that's where all those views came from.
And so I came home and I said, I can do that. And so I built it. So the videos sold me on it. And I had just about given up on CNCing with the little thing that I had. It just wasn't, it was, like I said, it was a toy and wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. So, and I've been a fanatic ever since. So.
Okay, we've got another question for you here. 11 Atlantica says, Becca, did you save the first project you ever cut on the Gatton, and what was it?
Well, it was a bottle opener and it was an OU, sorry, bottle opener that I made for a friend of mine. So he still has it, and he has it mounted on his little sports refrigerator there. And anyway, it looks great still.
Okay, Clyde wants to know when you got your kit. It wasn't that long ago, as I recall.
I have no idea. It was probably around 2 months ago, maybe. I don't know.
Let's
Dave can answer that.
yeah, with a quick search here, I think. Well, I should have put, hold on. I just put Miller, and there's a bunch of Millers in there.
Yay, Millers. Go get them.
But there's probably only one Becca, so let me put the Becca in there. Let's see. Okay, well, here's the email where I sent you the UPS tracking number, and
Okay.
that was on December 7th.
Really? That long ago? Okay. 3
So,
months ago. Or
and you probably, well, you would. It says according to this, you got your kit, or the expected delivery was December 11th.
Okay, so
Whatever
good.
that was.
Okay.
So yeah, you didn't waste any time getting it.
No. And I had to take my old one apart before I could really start building this one because I had all the screws and the stuff to put it together. Had to buy new rails, had to buy new lead screws because they were too short, too little.
Yeah, Hitch Hamilton's asking, would a smoke detector be appropriate to have near a CNC? I guess it couldn't hurt, but I would think that by the time it got smoking enough for that to go off, you're already in trouble.
Right. Yeah. It is a wooden machine.
Yeah. Let's see. George says, it seems like Becca had most of her machine built in a week.
It didn't take me much longer than that once I got started on it.
Yeah. That's what I keep trying to remind folks. I said, this isn't Becca's first rodeo. She's got experience in building these things. So
the table took longer than the machine did, I think. I made that thing solid, man. It's not moving.
Philip Carter says, awesome. I have kind of a similar story. Bought a very small 3018 Chinese machine. Cool to work with, but very limited to size. So I decided to research and stumbled upon the Gatton. Almost done with it. Well, that's cool.
That's wonderful.
That's a good deal. All right. Anybody else have any more questions for Becca? I guess I can.
I gotta mention, David, you got some fine looking plaques on your wall back there.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, if I can move my chair without stepping on my dog here, I wanted to. I wanted to show this one off because Becca made this one. And you can read it says Dave's Minions Meetup, April 29, 2017, Fort Worth, Texas. So this was a very cool surprise, actually. I wasn't expecting anything like this, but very, very cool plaque and a nice job as well, Becca. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And that was a lot of fun.
That was.
We had, let's see, we ate at Cooper's Barbecue, I believe. Mm-hmm. Had a lot of good folks. I see Juan and his family was there. Russ Meadows, I think was there. Yeah, Russ was there. Charles Deering made the drive up.
Bill, who was
Dale Lundham was
Dale?
there.
Yeah, he had some really nice things he brought.
Let's see, Jeff Robinson was there.
Mm-hmm.
A whole bunch of folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, good times. All right, here we've got another question. Yay! It's for you. Greg Euler says, Becca, what would you do differently if you built another Gatton?
Wow, it's kind of early for me to make any decisions on that for this one because I think everything's perfect on it right now. So the thing was, I built the second one because I wanted to do some different things on it, mainly make it bigger. I've got those marble toy games that I had pictures of earlier. They're 24 inches wide, and my old Gatton couldn't cut them 24 inches wide. So I had to cut everything down. So I really wanted something at least 24 inches. And I said, well, if I'm going to go 24, I might as well go 48. Hey, I'm in Texas. I make everything bigger. So, but on the new machine, I think it's really well designed, better than the shoestring was. I like the Z-axis lead screw centered inside. I think that's a better design than having it on the side like you had it before. I like the sturdiness of the gantry being doubled with the plates inside. I put 5 inside the little box, the little squares, and that made me feel like it was really solid. And the Z-axis has the double plate, which the other one only had the front plate on it. There's just so many improvements on it. I just really like it, and it all went together very easily. I don't know of anything that I would do differently, except for I do want to add a fourth axis at some point. It's perfect.
Steve Misher asked, Becca, what electronics did you use when you built the Gatton?
Well, I was very fortunate in getting in when Xylotex was still selling their box. So I bought the Xylotex plug and play, and I just moved it over to my new machine when I got it. When I built it. So I didn't have to deal with that much, other than just loading everything up and getting it to work. And since I already had all the Mach 3 settings and everything was already set up to work, it worked perfectly once I moved it over to my new machine.
Okay. Here's another question. Clyde says, what was the electrical problem you had?
I don't know. I still don't know. It was when I was first making those first things, all of a sudden my router just started the Z-axis, the coming straight forward on the Y-axis instead of continuing on the X-axis. And we did all sorts of things. I talked to Mark Lindsay. He tried to help me. Dave tried to help me. And finally, I just completely erased Mach 3 and reloaded it. And for whatever reason, it's been working fine since. So something got screwed up with Mach 3. Who knows? Good old computers.
Yeah, that's what we do. We just blame it on computers if we can't figure it out.
I worked with computers my whole life. I was a software engineer for GE when I was working, and trust me, you can't trust them. They will just all of a sudden stop working for no reason at all, and you just have to kind of track the problem down. And I never did figure out what caused the problem, because that was right in the middle of a run, and all of a sudden it went berserk. So who knows?
Okay. Any other questions? We got about 5 minutes or so left. Harry Ragland's asking, do you work with geckos?
I don't even know what that is. So no.
No, well, unless he's talking about the there's a board called a gecko, or driver board called a gecko, I think. It's not spelled that way, I don't think, but
It might be something he's asking me about GE. I was with GE Healthcare.
oh, maybe that's
Yeah,
GE.
COS. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
It is.
Oh, there he is. There he is. General Electric Common Operation System.
No, I worked with healthcare. We programmed in mumps. Nobody ever knows what that is.
Okay, I think, let's see, I'm trying to read this. I'm not sure if this is a question or a statement there. Okay. Oh, I see. It's another two-part question. I'm only looking at one of the parts, looks like. 11 Atlantica says, can I ground the shielded wire to the ground terminal on the stepper driver? I have a grounding block as shown in the video. I haven't seen the video, but it would be much neater if it was okay to slip it into the ground terminal with the power supply wire, unless there's a problem with doing that way. I'm scared to answer that because I'm not sure exactly what he's talking about. Grounded the shielded wire. Yeah, there's probably Hobbies is probably talking about gecko drivers there. Larry Thompson says, hi, Dave. I'm building the CNC you had plans for 5 or 6 years ago and like to know the best way to make the slots in the gantry with no CNC to make them on. Becca, how would you make those? With a just set up a
Drill press.
okay.
I drilled 2 holes and then use a
A chisel.
chisel. My mouth is not working tonight. Yeah,
Okay.
to chisel them out. Yeah,
Okay.
it was a pain. That was one of the hardest things to do because there were so many of them, and but I got them done. It's workable, but don't use MDF. Use plywood.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, MDF will work for, I don't know, a day or two.
It starts raveling. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, here's another one for you, Becca. It says, Becca, what is the most fun thing you have done on your CNC?
Gosh. Probably trophies for the school. We did, they asked me to do trophies with pictures, photos on each one of them. And so I had individual trophies for the kids and had a picture of them on each one. And I put the plastic on the picture so it wouldn't get messed up. And they just loved them. The parents loved them. They just thought that was the greatest thing ever. And that was fun to experience them enjoying my work,
Okay, let's see. Mark Lindsay says he cheated. I wouldn't necessarily say that's cheating, but drilled 2 holes and then used a trim router to join them. Yeah, that would work.
Yeah.
Tim DeLine says, Dave, do you have your 4-inch dust collection hose grounded on your CNC? No, I do not.
I don't either.
Never have. Been doing this for years. Never have.
I'm glad to hear you say that, Dave, because I always think I probably should do that.
But if other people want to do it, makes you sleep better at night, go for it. But I never have. Dennis Mills says, Dave, who was selling laptops loaded with Mach 3? Well, nobody I know is selling laptops loaded with Mach 3 because that would be illegal because you have to have a license for Mach 3 unless they're just throwing a demo on there, and then that really doesn't matter. because the demo is free. You can download that all day long. But Michael Chipser is the one that's selling laptops, refurbed or whatever. I bought one from him. I think I bought 2 desktops from him. And as far as I don't know if he has any right now or not, but yeah. But I don't know if I don't think anybody's loading them up with Mach 3. He might be putting the demo on there, but you're not going to be able to do much with the demo. It'll only run about 500 lines of code, which isn't squat for CNC stuff.
For those of you that are just starting out, if you're wondering about your computer, I put a thing out on Facebook and asked my friends if anybody had an old desktop sitting around, and I had 6 delivered to me the next day for free. So, they're out there, and then you can just put them out there by your machine and not have to go buy a new computer on top of buying everything else.
Yeah, Mark Lindsay says it best. He says 500 lines of code is just enough to cheese you off. It won't even run the little Roadrunner test program that comes with Mach 3. It won't even finish that because that's more than 500 lines. So. Yeah, but I would, hopefully there's nobody out here thinking the wrong way. But anytime you're talking about software, whether it be VCarve Pro, Aspire, Mach 3, whatever it is, buy the legal stuff. There's too much stuff out there that's junk, and a lot of that stuff doesn't work right anyway. That's bogus. I know there's a lot of fake UC 100 CNC motion controllers that you'll see some that are selling for like $40 or $50, and then people buy them and wonder why they don't work right. It's because they're not the real deal. It's somebody trying to rip them off. So yeah, buy the good stuff. Javi says, I'm running an old 1998 desktop running XP on my Gatton. You don't need much. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Just remember that if you're running, and I saw Michael Chipser point this out to somebody, I think on Facebook today, if you're running a operating system like XP or Windows 7 that's no longer supported, there's no updates for God's sakes, don't put it on the internet, because since there's no updates, you'll get something and lose data, and and if you're using it to run your machine,
it can stop right in the middle too.
Yeah, it can do all kinds of crazy things.
Update it when it's.
I don't know why people, and I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear your excuses, but I don't know why people want to put the computer they're using to run their machine on the internet. That's just silly to me. As cheap as computers are, get an extra one and use it dedicated to the machine.
Yep.
Yeah, Mark Lindsay and I are on the same page here. He says, if you run the illegal stuff, you deserve every virus you get from it.
That's right.
Amen. Let's see.
The other thing I want to tell you, all you newbies out there, if you're just learning VCarve Pro, go to Mark Lindsay's Facebook page. He's got fabulous videos on learning what do you call it, VCarve for Dummies, and he starts you from the very beginning, and he teaches you everything.
He didn't call it that, isn't it? I thought he called it for the absolute beginner.
Oh, that's what it is.
I think that's his nice way of saying
for
dummies or something. I don't. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I think he says it's for absolute beginner.
I went through it after working on VCarve for several years, and I learned a lot of stuff. He goes into great detail on tricks and really, really good information.
Yeah. Okay, I don't see any other questions. If you all got any more questions, get them in here quick. Okay, Larry Thompson says, is VCarve Pro still up there in price? Well, it depends on what you consider up there. It's $699, I believe. But I can tell you, I've been using VCarve Pro back when I first bought it. It was version 4.6. That's how long ago it was. It's like I think 2007 when I first bought it. And back then it was $5.99. It wasn't $6.99. And it absolutely killed me to spend that money. But then once I got it, I'm like, oh my God, it's worth twice as much. It's absolutely the best stuff out there. And trust me, I'm not even a big fan of some of the management of Vectric. So, I'm not a fanboy, but I am a fanboy of their product. It's the best out there, hands down.
Yep.
At any price. The Aspire, a lot of people say, it's $2,000, and I haven't used it, but I'd be willing to bet if it's anything like the VCarve Pro, and I'm sure it is, it's well worth the money for what you can do with it. So.
And the cool thing about Vectric is, like, I started with desktop, and then I upgraded to the VCarve Pro, and then this last year I took the big leap and upgraded to the Aspire. And they give you credit for having the previous product and take the price off of that for the new product. And I don't know of anybody that does that.
Yeah, that's a good deal. Let's see here. T Mealer 2003 says, do you need Mach 3 and VCarve Pro? Well, yes. I mean, you could use Linux and something else, but you need control software, which is what Mach 3 is, and you need design software, which is what VCarve Pro is. Now, whether you use those particular two, that not necessarily, but you definitely got to have the software to control your machine, which is either Linux CNC, which is the free stuff, Mach 3, Mach 4, UC CNC, something along those lines, or with the VCarve Pro, you need either Cut 2D, VCarve Desktop, there's a bunch of different ones, but that's design and what I call design and programming software, because that's what creates your program. You could also use Fusion 360. If that's kind of a big hammer for a little nail, but you could use that, and it does have some post processors in there. So I haven't tried it because I keep things simple. I use VCarve Pro, and I've been using Mach 3 for years. So
that's what I use because Dave said so.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. J Fabrications, he uses something totally different. And that's another good channel you should check out. Johnny, I hope you don't mind me plugging your channel. But if you're in YouTube watching, go to the chat, and where it says J Fabrications, go over to hover over that, and you'll see the three little dots to the right. You can right click on that, nope, it's left. Yeah, left click, and you can go to his channel and subscribe and check him out, because he's got some good stuff. Did an excellent job on his Gatton CNC build. Had him on the show, I think, a while back. But he's using an offline controller thing. What is it, by Rat Motor, I think is what it was. Johnny, correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's what it is. But anyway, that's whole nother option of running it too. Lazy O says, I've already upgraded to Aspire. It pays for itself. Yeah. Harry says, I run VCarve and don't have Mach. Yeah, you don't have to have both of those. Or you don't really have to have either one, but you got to have stuff that will do that. Johnny says, thanks for the shout out. You're welcome, man. I watched that video you did the other day. Just cool channel. Go check him out, folks. Charles D's got a question for you, Becky. Says, do you use Aspire since you upgraded that you couldn't do with VCarve Pro?
Well, I'm learning. I want to do 3D carving, and I've designed a couple of things in Aspire to do the 3D carving, but I haven't run them yet because I just finished my machine, and I'm gonna start playing with it seriously here in this coming week. So stay tuned.
Okay. Thank you, Javi. Javi has put Johnny's YouTube channel link there in the chat on the tubes. Ryan Ballard says, I'm just sitting on the other side of the spectrum using easel and CNC. And he also has yet another option to run a CNC because he uses that Raspberry Pi stuff. Alrighty. John Ian says, okay, newbie question. I have Mach 3 and Pro E.
I don't know what that is.
Okay. Pro E, I'm assuming he's talking about Pro Engineer. That's some old stuff, I think. I haven't heard that in a while. Is Mach 3 the design or the controller? Mach 3 is the controller software. That's what you use to interpret the code that your other software generates. Generates the program, or you use the post processor to create the program. So Mach 3 is the control software. Okay, Johnny says they are called the DDCS V3.1. That's the best way to find the unit. Yeah, so if you put that in a search, Google search, you'll find it. And I think if I'm not mistaken, I think I looked for that back when I was getting ready to have Johnny on the show. And I think I found it on Amazon, I believe. Okay, let's see. We're about out of time here, folks. 11 Atlantica says this has been a fun, lively show. Well, thank you. I hope they... John says, can I use Pro E for the design? If Pro E is Pro Engineer, which I think that's what you're talking about, I just haven't heard that even mentioned in years. I didn't even know that stuff was still around. But yeah, if you know how to use it, you could do it. You could use SolidWorks, you could use Fusion 360, or you could use, if you have an older version of the AutoCAD Inventor, any of that stuff, that's design software.
That's the hard part.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're going to wrap this one up.
I want to say hi to my Uncle Freddie if you're still out there.
Okay, what's his name?
Freddie.
Okay, well, I haven't seen a comment. Has he commented at all?
I don't.
Okay, well, I would give him a shout out if he comment, but I don't think I've seen a Freddie. All right, well, we're going to wrap this up. Again, Becca, I don't know if I told you at the beginning, but when we sign off here, you don't have to go anywhere. We'll hang out because I think Javi's wanting to join us anyway.
Okay.
So I'm going to send him a link. But anyway, we're going to wrap this one up. Thank you so much, guys. We've had like 120 or so folks watching tonight. Just good crowd here tonight. I appreciate y'all. If you would hit the thumbs up on the way out, it always gives me warm and fuzzy. So hit that on the way out, and leave a comment down below too later if you want to in the regular comment section. And Becca, thank you so much for coming on here. I knew it was going to be a lot of fun having you on here. So we will get ready to sign out here. Let's see if I can find that magic button, and we will wave and say good night. Oh, one more thing. I wanted to say, tonight's February 29th. So it's leap year. But Becca, you don't have to wait another 4 years before you come back on.
Okay.
You're welcome anytime. All right. Good night, everybody. Have a good weekend.